Good afternoon, financial professionals. Abby Fletcher here of E4 Insurance Services, welcoming you to the BREW, Building Relationships Every Week. Thanks for tuning in today. For those of you joining the BREW for the first time, we like to start the BREWcast by celebrating today's National Day for June 16th. Today is National Fudge Day. That's right. Today we celebrate this heavenly chocolate confection. Fudge recipes date back to the 19th century, where some shops in Mackinac Island, Michigan, began to prepare and sell fudge to the summer vacationers. Some of the original fudge shops are still located on this famous island. Today, stay cool and treat yourself to a hot fudge sundae or a fudgesicle. Today on the BREW, as part of our technology and process series, we have Carrie Carrero, who serves as onboarding coordinator and our partner at Vive Solutions. Today, Carrie will give us a tour of Vive and show us a live case from start to finish. We will see how within minutes, advisors can electronically provide term insurance to their clients, providing ease for both the advisor and the client. Feel free to use the chat box below while Carrie is live. I'll be keeping a lookout for questions as we have them. Also, all attendees are in a drawing for a prize, and we'll be announcing the winner shortly, so stay tuned. Thanks for tuning in, and without further ado, Carrie, welcome. The mic is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Today, we're going to start out with the demo of a Vive order and some basic navigation to get you there. So I'm going to start the screen share in just a minute. And you'll notice the website looks pretty familiar. We're on the home page for E4 Insurance. This is after you have signed in to the page. You can see over here to the right-hand side, we have a Vive icon here with some helpful call-outs for the page itself. This is where you're going to go to start your order. So once you've logged in through E4 Insurance, you come to Vive, and you can launch Vive by clicking on the icon. Once in Vive, if you are a first-time user, you will have to just verify your information. So part of your information will be passed in the login from E4 to Vive. Once the page has been completed with all of the required information, which is here identified by the red asterisk on the field, you'll see all fields will turn green. You'll come to the bottom and hit save, and your profile is complete. So within seconds, you have a completed registration within Vive, and you can navigate around the system. Some basic callouts up here. You have your start an order, which this is where you're going to go to start your quoting and finish the order submission. Your My Cases tab, which will take you right here to case status to see any of your cases that you have submitted through the platform. Carriers and products, which will give you a full list of the carriers and the products available on the platform. Each one of the links in the product summaries section will take you into the at a glance documents for each carrier. So if you do need information, feel free to go there. You have your Get Contracted tab. Again, if you are submitting business through Vive and E4 Insurance, you want to make sure that you are appointed and contracted with the carrier you're submitting business with. How Vive works, which has a great variety of information on the how-tos of the system, and of course contact, which will be labeled for all of the staff at E4 that you want to reach out to if you should have any questions. So we're going to kick off today by actually running through an order. Start an order here. You have your ticker tape along the top, and it lets you know exactly where you are in the quoting stages. The idea for dropping a ticket in Vive is really to spend 5 minutes or less to enter in your client's information, pick the appropriate carrier, and send this off to the carrier to do the fulfillment. So to start off that process, we're going to enter in the basic information needed to just run a quote. So you can see here, the name field is not labeled with the asterisks, but you do have a couple here that are. So those fields are the only fields that are required to actually start the quoting phase of Vive. So we'll go ahead and enter in a client information starting with date of birth. We'll say this is a male. We'll run the state of Rhode Island. You have the coverage amount. If you're not really sure what face amount would be best suited for your case, you can use the needs analysis calculator here to help determine that. This example, we're just going to say 500,000 for a face amount. Replacement is asked up front. There are a couple states, New York specifically, that you cannot do replacement business for. So we don't want you to spend the time entering in information only to find out that you're not able to actually drop a ticket for that particular state. So we answer that up front. Term period, you can be as specific or as general as you'd like here. If you want to use all term years, just click on all. If you'd like to be more specific with your quoting, you can go ahead and click on the specific states, the specific term periods that work for your case. Coming down to the underwriting section, there's two ways to quote a client. The default mechanism would be to manually put in the underwriting class. So you can choose through non-smoker or smokers. And you can go from best class right through a table 8. If you're not familiar enough with your client to manually choose the class, you can also choose to use the health analyzer. And what that will do is take you to a secondary page for you to ask your client some basic medical information. So height, weight, tobacco status, there's a family history question, there's a medical question, and a couple lifestyle questions. If you choose to use the health analyzer, you're ultimately letting Vive do the quoting based on the underwriting attached to each one of those carriers. There are behind the scenes mechanisms that are tied to each one of the carriers' underwriting guides, and it will populate the classification that best suits your case. For this example, I'm going to keep the manual selection. So I'm going to quote a non-smoker, and I'm going to say the class would be preferred. Coming down into riders, you have 3 rider options here. In the event you were to choose child rider, it does open up another window, which you can provide in the number of units you need for the case. We'll leave all those as no for today. You can save the information. You can continue. We will continue in this case, but if you do have to leave and come back, just make sure you hit save, and you're free to close the window. So now what we're in the middle of here is Vive is actually in the background pulling the information that we put in all of these required fields here to run the illustration. And this is normally a very, very quick process. Apologize for the delay here. Here we are to the quote results page. So as I said, all that information is being calculated, and based on the carrier selections you have in Vive, we'll populate all of the quotes that pertain to your quote parameters. So you see here the ticker tape is moved over. You have a summary of what it is you're trying to quote your client here. Now, in the previous page, I did select 10 and 20 years. So you do see 10 and 20 going down the page. You can print as a PDF, you can save this to your desktop. You can compare. So you can take 3 products or 3 different carriers and put them on a side-by-side comparison. You'll have all the same information you had on the previous page with the addition of some specific financial ratings of each of the carriers and some of the details per carrier as well. You can also print this page, again, print it as a PDF, save it to your desktop, whatever works for you. And you can go back to your results. Next, you can edit and filter the quote. Let's say for this example, I know my client is super healthy. We're really looking for the fastest process available for my client. And maybe I only want to look at those carriers that would offer my client accelerated underwriting. If I open up my filter, the first filter option here you'll see is AU availability. If I click on that option, the quote results will basically be re-triggered and then only display those carriers for me that have the AU icon here. So you can edit any or filter any piece of information on either one of these tabs. This is your your filter window, and here your edit. So if you need to make a change to date of birth, gender, face amount, term period, any component of the quote, you can do that right here. Next is the share a quote. And really, this was designed for E4 to be able to share quotes with you. This is not a function to use to email a quote to a client. However, let's say you may have an assistant. You would like your assistant to do some of the quoting. They have the ability to run the quote and actually share it with you. So what they start basically will be saved under your profile. You'll be able to log into Vive and pick up right where your assistant left off. Coming down here below the blue bar, again, all of your quote results. The default mechanism to display your quote results is going to be the Vive score here, which this is an independent component that was created by us, Vive Solutions, and we're looking to compare 4 key components of the overall score, which is carrier ratings, conversion privileges, product features, and AU eligibility. This is a weighted score. The conversion privilege does make up a total of 40% of that overall Vive score. So depending on the convertibility of that particular carrier and that product will really drive that score up or down. The concept behind this was, if anybody is familiar with the website Rotten Tomatoes, it's kind of along the same grading schedule as if it were Rotten Tomatoes. If you want to look at your quote results based on premium and not by Vive score, you can absolutely do that. You just want to click on your premium column here, and the premium will then recalculate based on lowest to highest. And if you click it again, you can go highest to lowest. Over here, as I mentioned earlier, is your AU indicator. If you hover over that, there's a quick tooltip just to explain what AU is. The possibility of no exam and no APS, which obviously moves to a much quicker determination and a decision from the carrier. This is not saying that your case is definitely going to qualify for AU, but based on the age, face, and the parameters of what you're quoting, it does come into the parameters for the AU eligibility programs for each of the carriers. If I hover over premium, you see the pop-up window. It will give you the cost savings if the insured were to pay annually versus monthly. And also built into that, you will see the annual and monthly premium and the next option. So when your client has made the decision on what carrier they want to go with, clicking on the premium will actually take you right into the next phase of the order, which is client information. So for today, we're going to pick Banner. Now you can see here, I've moved to client info. And at this point, this is the one page of Vive where you're going to put in all of the other detailed information on your client. You'll see everything is labeled with the asterisk, so it is required. So we'll start actually filling in some of this information. We've put in some reflexive technology into some of these fields so that it does not allow for, let's say, dummy socials. It can't be consistently one value through everything. We've actually taken the criteria through the Social Security Administration to create this field. So if something is not allowed by the Social Security Administration, you would not be allowed to put that value combination into the site. And if you do not put the appropriate number of values or it's invalid, the field will actually turn red for you to outline for you that there's something invalid about that field. And it will not let you proceed until it is in the appropriate format and it turns green. At this stage, there'll be 3 values that you will not be able to edit on this page. First being the gender, second, date of birth, and third, the state. All of that information is required to run the illustration. So if there are any changes, you realize there's any errors with any of that information, you would have to go back to the previous screens to edit the details before you can actually move on with the order. You have an email option here, and this is actually required for a couple different reasons. They have to match. So there's technology built into this as well. If you don't put in the correct values, it does turn red if it's either one that doesn't match, and it does force the correct data in order for you to move forward. Phone number. The general rule of thumb with phone numbers, only put in the phone number where your client wants to be reached. If there's no need for them to be contacted at work, do not put the work number in. This is solely for fulfillment of both the interview, and if your client should not qualify for AU, obviously communication between the examiner and your client to set up that appointment. So again, only put in the phone number where your client does want to be contacted at. If they want to be contacted at all 3, no worries, you can definitely go ahead and do that. Basic information down here you'd see on any application. So we'll put in a street address. If there is an apartment, a PO box, you can put all that information in as well. Driver's license information. You can put in the number. You have the US citizen question, purpose of coverage. Then you come down to the quote information. At this point, this stage in the order, it's almost like looking at your cart in Amazon. So any of the options you've checked up to this point is basically a summary. If you do need to make any changes here, again, going back to the previous two screens, you'll be able to make your changes and then move forward. If your client wants to pay more frequent than annual, you have the option of picking the modal premium, and you'll notice it does have the modal premium value in here as well. The default will be annual. As I mentioned earlier, there are certain states you can't do replacement in. That doesn't necessarily mean the client may not have existing coverage that they decide that they're going to keep. So we do outline that information in this section as well. So existing pending insurance, if the insured has any existing or pending coverage, the company you're applying to is going to want to know that information. So in the event that you do say yes, you have reflexive questions that populate. And as you can see, they're all labeled with the asterisks. So if the client has existing coverage they don't intend to replace, you'll fill in all of the information on that existing policy. And let's say, for example, the client has multiple policies. Maybe they're going to keep one, they're not going to keep one. You can add in as many policies as you need. And if you realize you click on the add existing pending coverage too many times, there will be a black X box here at the last instance of insurance. By clicking that, we'll just remove the instance altogether and you'll be able to proceed. You can also submit an order where the owner will be someone other than the proposed insured. So maybe it's a spouse, a trust, a business partner, a business. By answering no to this question, again, reflexive, and you'll have the ability to enter in all of the owner information. The relationship type based on carrier is pretty extensive, so all of the common ones we see you'll be able to choose from, and this list does change based on carrier. So you may see an option here for one carrier you don't see for another. That is by design. The nice part about collecting the ownership information as well is there is no guesswork in determining what forms need to be used. So if there is an owner that maybe resides in a different state than the proposed insured, all that information gets passed over to the carrier, and the carrier will pull the appropriate forms needed for that state and that situation. Lastly, you have your beneficiary information. The nice part about the beneficiary section is you can delegate either primary or contingent beneficiaries, and you can add in as many as you need as long as the percentage box here totals 100% based on the beneficiary type that you're putting in. And just as you did for the existing pending insurance, when you want to add a beneficiary, you can just continue to hit add. And the same rule applies if you need to remove a beneficiary. Just click on that black X and it takes the information away. So we will do John Doe as a beneficiary here, label it as a father. You do need the social. We'll label that as 100%. We'll keep the beneficiary type primary, and we'll go ahead and fill in the date of birth. Now at this point, all data points on my order are complete. You see all my data fields are green. I can choose to either save this information and come back. If I'm ready to submit, I can actually move on to the final page of the order. And that's going to be the agent attestation page. There's no physical signature that's required of the agent during this process. So the language set on this page is dictated by the carrier and basically constitutes as your electronic signature on the application. We've come to the last page of our ticker here. You can split commission. So if you do answer yes, you'll be asked for the balance of this information. The individual signed into Vive at the time this order is being created, their information will automatically populate as the first agent. And there are carriers that have a limit to the commission split, where other ones you can add in as many as you need to, again with the total equaling 100%. You have your agent attestation language. This one happens to be for Banner. As an agent, you are agreeing that the terms stated above are accurate. And then finally, you're going to click on the green Submit Agree. Now, we're not going to do that today in this example because this is the live environment. We don't want any orders to be submitted. But basically what's happening during this time is the order is being packaged and delivered to the insurance carrier. So all of the data points that were collected on this page will be transmitted to the carrier. You, as the agent, will get a confirmation email just verifying that your order has been successfully submitted. Your client is getting what was called the client step-by-step guide. So in the event you are submitting to a carrier that does a traditional phone interview, the client will receive the data form and it will outline for them all of the items that they should be prepared for to complete that interview, types of information to have handy, and an overview of the overall underwriting process that is going to take place. If they happen to be submitting for a carrier outside of the AU criteria where an exam would be needed, there's also a second page of that guide, and it is actually a Q&A to prepare your client for what they should be expecting during that exam appointment. So this is the actual copy that goes out to the client. Again, summarizing what happens through the underwriting process, what types of information they should have handy for their interview, and then that Q&A section for how to prepare for a medical exam. And that actually completes the demo for today. So we will go ahead and open for questions.
Thanks, Carrie. I've opened up the lines for questions. If anyone has one, I was watching the chat box. They must have been so intrigued by what you were showing, Carrie. This is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel later this afternoon and also located on our website at E4.insurance. If any of the advisors on the call have any questions further on Vive, please contact our VP here at E4 and we'd be more than happy to show you around. Also, it goes without saying that try this on yourself. Time yourself. Carrie was able to go in and show us the nitty-gritty of the technology, but I'm confident that if you were to go and open a ticket yourself, you'd see that this can be done in a matter of 2 to 4 minutes. Any questions from the audience? Hearing none, let's go right to the drawing. Carrie, I'm going to have you choose a number between 1 and 14, please.
Let's go with lucky number 7.
Excellent, excellent. Who is the winner? Todd Gerbig. Congrats, sir. Be on the lookout for an email coming your way from all of us here at E4 with a complimentary coffee card and continuing education. And be sure to tune in next week, friends. We'll have Bill Shiloh, our friend, CEO, and president of Libra, who will be discussing industry updates and product-specific updates as well. Thanks for tuning in and have a great day.